Awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to bring you the word this morning if I can get my machines to work. They say paper is a thing of the past, but let me tell you, paper never fails you. Machines do. Yes, Frank, I know. As already has been shared, last weekend we had some amazing messages. Pastor Dom in the morning just ripped it up, talked about the great men and women of the Old Testament, the trials and the triumphs that they faced. And he made a statement at the very beginning of his message, and he said, Faith will let you see eternity, but courage will carry you there. As soon as he said that, and then he talked a lot about courage, I thought that is so true. Yes, we need faith, but we also need courage to go the journey. Then in the afternoon, I went to Melton, and Pastor Nick was preaching up a storm about all the great men and women of the Bible. And I don't know about you, but see this book? This is my bestseller. This is on my table stand, it's on my nightstand. And when someone asks me, what's my favourite book, what is it that you read the most, it would have to be this. For the last 35 years, this has been my book. And I do encourage you to read it because there's history in here. There's so much knowledge and inspiration and life lessons. We can learn so much from the people that have gone before us from this Bible. And our church sits under an organisation called INC. And we have amazing leaders and amazing mentors that care for us. They look after us, but they always also equip us. And they gave me a resource that's called For Goodness Sake, and it's a journey through the women of Jesus' genealogy. And I'm the only female speaker at the moment, so I thought that we could have some fun with this. We could learn, we could be inspired, we could look at the lives of the women that brought us Jesus. Amen? We're going to take a journey and we're going to look at Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, Bathsheba, and Mary, the mother of Jesus, because so much can be learnt from genealogy from those who have gone before us. Professionals will tell you that tracing family roots back through generations can help a person connect more deeply with a sense of self by learning about their family's past, where they came from, who they were, what they did, the trials they overcame, the accomplishments they achieved, the dreams they had. These are the professionals that are telling us that we really need to look into our ancestors. Compassion can be gained. Learning the history of our ancestors helps us gain a greater understanding of the challenges they faced, and it often inspires greater love and compassion for their flaws and mistakes. And I have to say that statement right there was very true for me. I had great compassion for men and women from my past that I thought were very harsh and very hard and maybe didn't do life the way I approved. But when I looked into their circumstances, when I looked into how they were raised, what happened to them, I had such compassion for them, and I understood why it was that they lived the way that they lived. Simply put, the culture by which we are influenced and which we are raised is a product of our ancestors. Ideas, traditions, lifestyles, thought processes, and everything that helps to create a functioning society and culture is passed on from generation to generation. And if you've read the Old Testament, you will have seen that so vividly. From generation to generation to generation, you see God's ways and lifestyles and customs and mannerisms getting passed down, and the fathers teaching their sons, and so on and so on. And now, because of Jesus and because of what Jesus has done, and because we have now been adopted into his family, guess what? These are our ancestors. This is now our genealogy. These are now our people. And if we want, we can read their stories and be inspired. We can read their stories and learn. We can look at their life And a lot of them did a lot of things that, they shouldn't have done. So maybe we could learn by their mistakes and not do the things that they did. And maybe look at what they did and what was successful and say, mate, that's not a bad way to go about it. That's not a bad way to go about this faith-filled, godly life that I say I am. I'm a Christian. Hence the title of my message, Learn from Those Who Have Gone Before Us. We just sung a song called Same God. Talks about Jacob, Moses, Mary, David, all the amazing things that happened to them. You heard your children then, you hear your children now. You answered prayers back then, you answer prayers now. These songs, these words, they're not just words, they're proclamations that we're singing. They're statements that we are making to the spiritual realm that the God that was is the God that still is. Guys, that God back then is still God today. He is still that powerful, and he is still capable to do everything he did then, now. And if you read your Old Testament, you will see that he did some amazing, phenomenal, unbelievable things, some of the things that he did. And a way to get to know God is to read those stories, because if we don't know the stories, then we're not going to know what God is capable of when we're in a situation and we need his help, because that God is our God. He's the same God. Amen? So my question this morning is, do we know our ancestors, those who have experienced this wonder-working God, those that have seen him in action, those that have made him do the impossible? Because that's actually, the Old Testament is full of impossible things that God did. Those that have gone before us, have we read their story? Jacob, Moses, David, Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, Bathsheba, Mary. Do you know that those 5 women were the only women listed in Jesus' genealogy? You have to take note of things like that in the Bible. There was heaps of other women. But why is it that only 5 women were noted in Matthew? And when I looked into it, I found out that they were all connected by genealogy, but they were all in hopeless situations. And if you will come with me on a journey this morning, I want to look into their lives, starting with Tamar. These women all had no human solution for their circumstances. They had to let go and let God. Man could not help them. Faith in God could help them, but they also needed to go the journey and be courageous. As in Pastor Dom's quote, faith will let you see eternity, but courage will carry you there. So let's look at Tamar this morning. So Tamar is the daughter-in-law of Judah, who is the son of Jacob, who is the son of Isaac, who is the son of Abraham. Has anyone ever heard that term? The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Have you ever read it in the Bible? The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's written in the Bible over a dozen times. God is referred to the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Do you know when God revealed himself to Moses, that's what he actually called himself. He said, Moses, Moses, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And when he instructed Moses to talk to the people, he said to Moses, refer to me in this way. See, there's importance and power in genealogy. When Peter preaches in the book of Acts, he too refers to God as the God of Moses, God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. This lineage, this line of people, this genealogy are biblical royalty. They are the people that we want to follow. And I was thinking about that because social media at the moment, we follow a lot of people, don't we? A lot of people follow the Kardashians. They've got a reality TV show, they've got products. Everyone is watching the Kardashians. Can I tell you, if we had social media back then, we would be glued to our screens watching Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Judah, so on and so on. And we would be looking for daily updates and daily posts from these people, because they are the people that we need to look to. But no social media, guys. We have to read our word. If we want to get to know Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Judah, so on and so on, we've got to read it old school and go to our Bible. So Judah, who's Judah? Judah's the son of Jacob. Judah has 3 sons, Onan, and Shelah. Let's read a little bit from Genesis 38. Verse 6 says, in the course of time, Judah arranged for his firstborn son, to marry a young woman named Tamar, who's who we're going to be talking about this morning. But was a wicked man in the Lord's sight, so the Lord took his life. Bang, just like that. According to Deuteronomy 25, 5 and 6, if brothers are living together and one of them dies without a son, his widow must not marry outside of the family. Her husband's brother shall take her, marry her, and fulfill the duty of her brother-in-law. So this gentleman who's just died, his brother now has to marry his sister-in-law to give her a child who will then be his brother's child. Yeah? The firstborn son she bears shall carry the name of the dead brother, so that his name will not be blotted out from Israel. This is the customs back then. So Jacob did this and gave Tamar his next son Onan. Verse 8. Then Judah said to brother Onan, go and marry Tamar, as our law requires of the brother of a man who has died. You must produce an heir for your brother. But here's the thing. Onan was wicked. He was just as bad as his brother. So he does marry Tamar, and he does go in and has sexual relations with her, but he does something, and we won't go into it, that he makes sure that she does not conceive a child. So God is very angry with Onan, so he takes his life as well. So here's Tamar now, 2 dead husbands, a widow, second time round. So Judah sends her back to her father and says, when my youngest son, Shelah, is old enough, I will send for you. But here's the thing, Judah's thinking in his mind, maybe I won't, because he'll die as well. So he's thinking in his mind, I'll send the problem away, and I won't have to look at the problem, and then it won't be a problem. How many of us have done that? Doesn't work, does it? Doesn't work. Problems are problems, we need to deal with them. So time passes, Judah's wife dies, so this is now the dad, the father-in-law, and he finds himself with some strong physical needs. He's a man, and he needs, can we say it? Are we allowed to say it? I don't know. He needs sex. Tamar, knowing men, dresses as a harlot, and Judah, her father-in-law, utilizes her services. I'm trying to be as prim and proper as I possibly can, but this Bible's got a lot of scandal in it. And guess what? She conceives a child. She gets pregnant. Verse 14 of chapter 38. Tamar was aware that Shelah had grown up, but no arrangements had been made for her to come and marry him. So she changed out of her widow's clothing, covered herself with a veil to disguise herself. Then she sat beside the road at the entrance of the village of Inan, which is on the road to Timnah. See, people had gone, a lot of people gossip back then. There's so much gossip in the Bible. A lot of people gossiped, and they all ran to her and said, Tamar, your father-in-law's coming. So she thought, here's an idea. Verse 24, about 3 months later, Judah was told, your daughter-in-law Tamar is guilty of prostitution, and as a result, she is now pregnant. This is Judah's response. Bring her out and have her burned to death. Okay, double standard much. Verse 25. As she was being brought out, she sent a message to her father-in-law, I am pregnant by the man who owns these. And she added, see if you recognize whose seal and cord and staff these are. See, Tamar was very clever. She was very clever. She wasn't conniving. She was clever. She was desperate. well aware by the law that said that if she slept with another man, she could be killed, she made sure that she got possessions from Judah that without a doubt proved that he was actually the man who had impregnated her. So she's very smart. Verse 38, Judah recognizes them, the possessions, and says, she is more righteous than I, since I would not give her my son Shelah. So what he does is he declares the truth, and he says, she is more righteous than I. And then he takes her in, and he cares for her. Now, before we get judgy on this woman, before we Karen her, let's just take a look at this woman's situation. Let's just look at things from her perspective. This woman is living in hopelessness. She is living in shame. She has been sent back to her father's home, a childless widow. There is nothing worse. A woman's most important function in the times of Tamar was to bear children who would continue the family line, and this was not going to happen. Imagine the women, the gossip mongers. She's a black widow. She eats her prey. She kills her men. She's responsible for the death of 2 men. This woman is just pure evil. That's what they would have been saying about her. And she has been sent back to her father's home, and this woman is living in shame. Do you know that she was the possession of Jacob now? She belonged to Jacob, but she didn't have a husband and she didn't have a son. So therefore, she was not entitled to any inheritance. So this is the law. But she was also not free to remarry, because remember, she is a possession of Jacob. So like I said, before we go getting judgy on this woman, understand survival, understand desperation. Basically, her life was over. And this is not Tamar's usual behavior. She's not devious, she's not desperate, but she is courageous. Because think about it. She did everything that she did without a guarantee that Judah would be noble. Jacob, not Judah. No, Judah, I had it right. That Judah would do the right thing. He could have so easily looked at those things, the possessions that she took, to prove that he was the man who impregnated her, and he could have just said, forget it, kill her, because by law, she should have died. So this woman was courageous to do what she did. Bible records that she had her face covered the whole time, so Jacob would not recognize her. And I thought about that, and I thought, yeah, she definitely covered her face, so her father-in-law would not recognize her. But I will put money on the fact that that veil that she covered her face with would have soaked up the tears that she was crying while her father-in-law was doing what her father-in-law was doing. She would not have been thinking, yes, this is going to get me what I need. She would have been lying there crying. I will put money on that. This is a desperate woman who had to do something to survive. Judah did not fulfill his duty by her, so she saw to it that he did. She actually was claiming what was rightfully hers. She was a part of this family, but in order to get some inheritance, to be cared for, to be taken in, she needed to provide a child, and she did. What we also need to note here is that Judah, prior to this, had walked away from God. So Judah was not in his father's house. He was not living in the way that this first family that we talked about, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, had been living. He was setting up his home amongst a different people and engaging in their ways and life worship. By Tamar doing what she did, she put Judah back in line with his family, and he then started to take back on the way his family lived. This woman changed history by being courageous and going and doing something, yes, scandalous, yes, shameful, but was needed for the time that we're in here. Tamar and Judah became direct ancestors of Jesus. And you read it in Matthew 1. This is a record of the ancestors of Jesus the Messiah, a descendant of David and Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac. Isaac was the father of Jacob. Jacob was the father of Judah and his brothers. Judah was the father of Perez and Zerah, who was the mother of Tamar. She had twins. Double blessing. God turned Tamar's hopeless situation into triumph. She is now part of the royal family, the genealogy of Jesus. She is one of the great people that brought us Jesus. And if you think about this story, Jacob was responsible for what was going on in his life. Because of poor choices, Jacob found himself in the situation that he was in. But Tamar, she didn't do anything. She didn't have a say in who she married. She didn't have a say, and she could not say no to marrying those two men. She knew how wicked and how evil those men were, but she did not have a say. But thank God, Judah had a revelation, a conviction of the Holy Spirit, that history that we talked about, that genealogy, those ways, what he was brought up in would have come to the surface, and he acknowledged his mistake. If I could have the band come and join me. Our God, our amazing, awesome, powerful God, used this awful situation to do a beautiful thing. He restored this woman. Tamar's story teaches us that even in the midst of absolute tragedy, where all is lost, God can turn a tragedy into a triumph. This woman's life was over. She now sits in the genealogy of Jesus. She brought us Jesus. She was lost. She had nothing. She was sent back to her father's home childless. And our God, our amazing, awesome, miracle-working God, changed her situation, and she now sits in Judah's home. It doesn't matter what happens in the world around us, whether through bad decisions like Jacob or tragedy being thrust upon us like Tamar, God will not be moved off his plan of goodness for you. God has put in place, before you were even born, written somewhere in a book, plans and purposes for you. Plans that won't harm you, plans that are going to prosper you, plans that are going to make you great. Even though circumstances look different to his promises, God will not be moved from fulfilling all he has for you. If we could all please stand, eyes closed. We're going to do something a little bit different this morning. This is just now you and God. We're going to sing that song in a minute, Same God. Just listen to my words and just take everything out of your mind and just do business with God this morning. Has God made a promise to you that has not yet been fulfilled? Is that you this morning? Do you have an unanswered prayer? Is there a healing that you have been waiting for? Abraham was called the father of many, and he had no children. It wasn't until Sarah, his wife, was old beyond childbearing years. It was impossible for Sarah to have children. She had a baby. God promised Moses that he would deliver the children of Israel. He brought him to a sea. Imagine, Moses, deliver my people. Okay, God, let's do this. Finally, he says yes. And God takes him on a journey, and they're at a raging sea. And Moses is like, what are we doing, God? So you know what God does? He splits it, and he opens it. And you know what freaks me out about that story? I watched it for years and years and years and years. They crossed on dry ground. God is a God of detail. He's a God of attention. He dried the ground so that when Moses led the children of Israel through the sea, they did not get dirty. Isn't that beautiful? That's God. What about Joseph? Sold into slavery, never wavers once. And then he finally sees the dreams and visions that God gave him come to fruition. What about David, a shepherd boy, the youngest of all his brothers? The youngest of all his brothers faces and kills a giant. The whole Israelite army could not kill Goliath. David did it with 5 stones. There's a whole message there. What's in your hand? Do you know he was anointed to be a king as a young boy, but actually had to wait 15 years to sit on the throne? Anointed to be the king, but had to wait 15 years. You know what I love about God? When we ask for prayer, the prayer's answered immediately. But sometimes life circumstances take a while to catch up with our God, because he's awesome and he's amazing. Don't lose hope. Keep believing. This same God that turned Tamar and Jacob's life around is our God. And just like he did it for them, he can do it for you. Just like we're going to sing this song now. If you have the courage this morning, let's go, guys. Please come forward. There's something powerful about going to God's altar. It's biblical. The altar of God is anointed. It's powerful. If you have the courage this morning, come out. Sing these lyrics. Proclaim them, claim them, declare them. Is there a healing? Have you been waiting for a baby? Is there a lady here who has not been able to have a child? It's coming. God fulfills his promises. Is there a healing? Raise your hand. Is there a healing? I know my husband is in need of healing. He's over in the Philippines. He should be here resting. I'm going to stand in the place of John this morning for his healing. Is there an unanswered